Square Enix is under a new shareholder control. So if you haven't been sleeping under a rock under this past decade, Square Enix has been going through it when it comes to leadership, releases, structural changes in the name of AI, and lastly, market value. And just to top it off, now we got these new shareholders which are dropping a 100-page slide on how mismanaged the company has been taking place. In this video, I'm going to be going into detail on how Square Enix reveals its plans to reboot the company in the next couple years, and how this possibly affects titles like Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. So if you like the video, please shoot me a like, because I am a small content creator and I want to rival the titans of YouTube. Let's go. Quality over quantity. So there's been an announcement that Square Enix says they want to improve the way how they release games, and they quoted it by saying quality over quantity, and this is a way for them to kind of awaken their way through the gaming industry and kind of just make a different impact on what they've kind of shown for the last couple years.
Did Rebirth sell bad? Just in a nutshell, FF7 Remake sold 7 million copies, which is when people thought it was an actual remake. Rebirth sold 2 million on PS5. We don't have any numbers other than that. And then when it was finally released on PC, it sold 1.3 million. Still less than half, even after going multi-platform.
According to Square Enix, it plans to adopt a multi-platform approach for its games, so leading the major titles being released on a consistent basis starting from March 2027, which in my opinion doesn't really make sense, because I feel like realistically they have been trying to be consistent with games, but it's just the development cycle is just way too long, and we can go into a whole portion of why that is probably an issue. And as a lot of you guys already know, that Square Enix is planning to do this sort of multi-platform approach where we're going to be getting a lot of these titles on multi-platforms, like on PC, Nintendo Switch, and so forth. From what it sounds like, I can finally get to play Bravely Default, which I used to play on the Nintendo DS. I'm a big fan of the series, but let's just see how this goes. But unfortunately, this is not going to be a sort of easy sort of strategy to kind of fix. We can't simply just do a 180, because from what I have researched, Square Enix has lost a combined 140 million in regards to abandoned projects. So obviously, if you guys don't know already, that, you know, Square Enix has dropped off you know, the Tomb Raider series and Duke X series, which was obviously Eidos Montreal and Crystal Dynamics. And they've kind of said, yeah, because it wasn't making a profit. And there's a number of reasons, in my opinion, why I felt like they weren't making a profit. But it seems like it's getting to this point where everything is just resting onto Yoshi P's shoulders when it comes to the Final Fantasy 14 series.
Is that a Final Fantasy 14 icon on your desktop? No. Tiff was here, but I don't think she successfully installed 14. In the bottom? No. Look by the 40. What the? That shyster! Oh my god!
Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. So this new investor group is called 3D Investment, and they had some tasteful things to say. Very interesting, tasteful things when it comes to these sort of previous titles like Forspoken. And I quote, "Forspoken was only worth $20 to $25. Bad, cringe dialogue, bad protagonists, unlikable characters, bad acting, bad pacing, and meh," and I quote, "meh generic storyline." And in my opinion, in Forspoken, it didn't even get a chance from out the gate, especially because it was on and designed and developed on the Luminous engine, which had a whole heap of problems straight out the gate. So the fact that this was going to be their sort of passion project and they were going to revolutionize the way gaming was going to be with that engine, it didn't get a chance. It didn't get a chance. I also think comparing Dragon Quest XI to the third remake is not a great comparison. I'm sorry. First of all, one is an older title, one is a remake. Of course, mostly your dedicated fans are going to be getting a remake, and they're not. And the people who are probably getting into the franchise and they see a remake, they'll be like, oh well, let me not get into the third one yet. Like I don't know the story. Like, you can't be using this as a metric when it comes to forecasting, especially when you're doing it with sales. So in my opinion, that's not a great metric in terms of sales. Now, what does this mean for the Final Fantasy series? For what I can see, our beloved Final Fantasy 16, which is currently one of my favorite games, I'm so sad to say this, has hit a record low of 3.23 million sales. And for the people who are not very aware on how bad those sales are, that was from first week. And obviously these ain't the official numbers because it hasn't come from Square Enix's mouth, as this is a sort of third party report. But when it comes to announcements like this, silent is basically deadly, because Square Enix has not announced that, oh, they've hit a 4 million mark or even a 5 million mark since it's been on PC, and his life cycle's somewhat basically over at this point. And to put the nail in the coffin, which doesn't really help, but Yoshi P, which is basically the director and producer of Final Fantasy XIV, also said, and I quote, "Given the budget, the cost of documentation, marketing, and the projected profits of Final Fantasy 16 would have costed, I wouldn't even want to look at the first week's sales."
You had a lot of fun with Rebirth, unlike 16 calendar. That's what I mean. Look, I don't like it, but it gets an emotional reaction out of me. Whereas 16, the tragedy is 16 on paper is so good. Dark, gritty, medieval fantasy. Main character can turn into Ifrit. There's swearing, there's drinking, there's smoking, there's this and that. Unpleasant story arc. And it's just really unsatisfying, and it just leaves you hollow and just like depressed, and what was the point of that? Wasted Sid, the best character in the game. Without Sid, you don't have his banter and back and forth with Clive, which makes them more fun and makes the boring scenes more fun.
There was a comment what really stood out to me as well when I was doing a lot of research, and I feel like a lot of people will resonate with this comment. And I quote, "The only good things that ever happen to games is when shareholders start complaining." But what do you guys think is going to happen with the future of Square Enix? At this current moment, their strategy is just been creating a bigger rift between the sort of OG fans and the sort of new generation, and this sort of clash between the two is not progressing the company into new heights. If anything, it's kind of stifling them and it's just keeping them what they're used to be, a staple. So if you like the video, please shoot me a like over so I can rival the titans of YouTube. I am a small content creator and I love to just continue to do these breakdowns, and also love sharing my thoughts on the sort of gaming landscape. Take care, guys. Peace.